Hello and welcome back to the North Lodge Cottage Garden. A shrub rose up for you next, launched in 2019 by David Austin Roses, and I'm really hoping that this one gets its time to shine. Obviously just released before that really horrible period of time that we all really want to forget, that locked down the world and really caused so many problems everywhere. This stunning rose is Gabriel Oak. Now, David Austin sent me one of these last year as a thank you for everything that I do for the brand, and I have that planted actually just to my right in a border. However, getting a camera angle on that one is really difficult. I bought this one today for a friend, and I thought I'd use this one as a demonstration on this particular one and do its review from a potted rose. So I've got this one in front of me, and this is Gabriel Oak, and it really is the most interesting of roses from David Austin. And I've brought along a friend to compare it with, because there's no other rose that looks like this in the collection. I don't know if any of you recognize this one. This is Thomas A. Becket. Now, I reviewed this one during National Rose Month 2021, and I'm really still not very sure. I have this and I'm still not very sure whether I like it or not, apart from the fact that the blooms are absolutely stunning. The scent is great. I cannot get over this nodding and bobbing about. All of these blooms in the wet end up face planted on the floor, and as you can see, if I line these two up, this is obviously Thomas A. Becket and this is Gabriel Oak. Look at that, absolutely stunning. This wonderful, lovely rippled effect that David Austin have managed to get into the shape of this flower, picking up its nod to its heritage for those species roses with that lovely rosetted, deep textured setting to them. It really is utterly sumptuous and absolutely beautiful. Now, Gabriel Oak is a repeat flowering shrub rose. It's going to reach a very large size, something in the region of 4 to 4.5 feet high, 4.5 to 4.5 feet wide, so it is quite a large shrub. It is very, very thorny, laced with hundreds of tiny little barbs. They're not too bad, so if you were wearing a pair of gloves, they wouldn't have caused you much mind, and they do rub off quite easily, but it does have thousands of very, very small barbs. The foliage and stem colour on this one is really interesting, and the overall appearance, I'm really glad that David Austin, with their breeding over recent years, have really started homing in on these things, because as you know, I absolutely adore the Lady Hamilton. However, there is a rumour from myself, being started by myself, that she's going to be knocked off the top spot this year for my #1 highly recommended David Austin rose. But very much like the Lady Emma Hamilton, a whole lot of attention has been paid with this rose to the actual overall look. The leaves, very, very dark green with a lovely dark edge to them. The stems are this wonderful, I'm not sure you're going to pick that up on this sort of distance, but the stems have this lovely port colour to them all the way along the growth tips, which is really lovely. And the growth tips themselves, you can see here, flame red, picking up this really lovely dark pink. Now the colour itself is really difficult to describe. I'm not sure you can call that red, so almost a sort of a porch red, or a very, very deep dark pink. It's utterly sumptuous and really, really very pretty. It's quite a late bloomer. Mine has only just started flowering now, right at the back end of June, and it's going to start flowering and continue to work all the way through the season, right to the very, very end of September and October. So a really good all-round rose that's quite large and is repeat flowering with these, I say, beautiful rosetted flowers which are utterly sumptuous. Quite a large shrub. This is also good for informal hedges and boundaries. So if you wanted to go to the extravagance or luxury of actually planting something other than, for instance, Rosa rugosa, which is the dog rose, which is traditionally used as hedging, something like Gabriel Oak from David Austin Roses would be a really nice addition. And there are going to be a section coming up in the next couple of weeks of other plants that I'm going to suggest you have other uses for, along with things like the lark ascending for hedges and the Queen of Sweden. Gabriel Oak, repeat flowering, this lovely dark pinky red, and also the biggest plus point on this, they've managed to take the fragrance from this chap, Thomas A. Becket. Now, I'm not saying the two roses are related, but the scent from this and the scent on Gabriel Oak are very, very similar. Oh, goodness me, it really is lovely. Now again, everybody smells fragrance and scent very, very differently, but this is really, really quite intoxicating. Now I had this in the van alongside myself and Ethel coming home from the nursery today, and it was filling the cab on my van with this most wonderful aroma. It's rich, it's dark, it's fruity. It's exactly as you'd expect it to be from a rose with this coloration. You'd expect it to be dark and sumptuous with multiple levels. It smells of blackberries. Oh, old rose fragrance. It's very heady. It really does make the head swim with fragrance. It really is very attractive. So this is Gabriel Oak from David Austin Roses, launched in 2019. A fairly large shrub rose, reaching around 4.5, maybe onto 5 feet wide and 4.5 to 5 feet tall, but has the most wonderful rosetted flowers. Free flowering, relatively disease resistant. It does have quite a few thorns, but a lovely all-round package. Absolutely everything brought together in one really good rose. Several from this point in time from David Austin that are absolutely cracking. So all together, lovely dark flowers, beautiful dark green foliage, these lovely port ruby red stems, and these growth tips, bringing the whole thing together as something that's really very attractive. And I'm going to give you a top tip. This is going to make the top 10 this year, well, from my top recommended roses, which is going to run to a top 20, but you can see this one settling well within the top 10.